Okay, so this is the Pythagorean Theorem worksheet. Remember the Pythagorean Theorem, this will be given to you, so don't worry about memorizing it, but it says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay. And what kind of triangle does this apply to? What kind of triangle? It applies to only a right triangle. Now the next question is, where do a, b, and c go? So c is really important. C has to go on the longest side. The fancy name for this is the hypotenuse, and it's always directly across from the right angle. Now A and B, for example, I could put A and B here, right? That's fine. My question to you is, could I switch them? Could I put B over here and A over here? And the answer is yes. So it doesn't matter where A and B are. So for example, I could, put B over here and A over here. That's fine. Now C, I cannot move around. C has to be, it has to be on the longest side. So don't forget that. Okay, so number 1 says solve for x. So let's see what we can do here. On these problems, I would like you to write the Pythagorean theorem first. Okay, so here I will start with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And in this case, c has to be 13 because, remember, c has to be the longest side of our triangle. So I'll go ahead and put 13 in for c. And then one of these has to be a, the other one has to be b. So I'll say maybe, a is 12, for example. So 12 squared plus, and then x squared, because I just, I took x off here and I substituted it and I said x is going to be b, so x is going to show up here. All right. So now we can square things. You can use your calculator if you'd like. So 12 squared is 144 plus x squared. 13 squared is 169. All right, and now I would like to get x all alone. So to do that, I will subtract 144 from both sides. I'll get x squared equals, this should be 25. And now what's the opposite of squaring? The opposite of squaring is square rooting. All right, so these cancel, so I just have x left over, and the square root of 25 is 5. So my answer is x equals 5. All right, 1 done. The next problem says, well, I guess we're just solving for x, aren't we? Okay, so same story. I'll set up my Pythagorean theorem. So I'll say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So now, notice that my long side is x, so I'll replace the c with an x. And now my other two sides, a and b, are 3 and 4. Okay, remember the order doesn't matter. I could say this is 3, that's 4. I could say this is 4, that's 3. That's okay. Either order is fine. But here I'll do 4 squared plus 3 squared. Okay? 4 squared is 16. 3 squared is 9 equals x squared. 16 plus 9 is 25. Okay, equals x squared. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. So I get x equals square root of 25 is 5. Notice the square root and the squared cancel. They go away, and all that's left is x. So for the second time in a row, I've gotten x equals 5 as my answer. And really, this is a small deal, but I should be putting units. Notice here it says inches in the problem, so this should be 5 inches. And this should be 5 miles, because the problem said miles. Small thing, but small things do matter in mathematics. Okay. Number 3 says, state if each triangle is a right triangle. So this is called the converse of the Pythagorean theorem, I believe. I'm not too worried about what it's called, but the point here is that now we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to check. So if a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, then I know that it's a right triangle. If they aren't equal, then it must not be a right triangle. So I'm going to set it up here. So I will do a squared, so I'll say 9 squared. And now here we have to be careful. We have the square root of 115 squared equals 11 squared. So I've just plugged into the Pythagorean theorem. I knew that this had to be c because it's the longest side. And now let's see if this is actually true. Let's see if they're equal. So 9 squared is 81. 115 square root square, these cancel, right? They go away. So I get 115. And this is 121. Okay, over here I think I get like 196 or something maybe, I'm not sure, but the main point, the big point here is that these are not equal. Okay, they're not equal. And because they're not equal, I know that this is not a right triangle. So the answer is no, not a right triangle, because a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared. Okay, so number 4 is a very similar problem. And I'm going to follow my own advice here that I gave you, which is to write the Pythagorean theorem first. And I want you to do this. I know I skipped it last time. I shouldn't have done that. I was trying to go a little fast. Accuracy is always better than speed. It's always better. So here, c, since it's the long side, is 15. And 9 and 12 are my short sides. So I'll say 9 squared plus 12 squared. So I plugged in. 9 squared is 81. 12 squared is 144. 15 squared is 225. So is this true? Let's check it out. Let's do 144, plus 81. Ooh, I always hit the wrong button. There it is. And there you go, 225. Okay, cool. So the two sides are equal. So this checks out. So yes, this is a right triangle. Okay. Now these are going to get a little bit tougher. I think I might modify this problem a little bit. I think I modified it in class for you guys. We'll deal with this in a second, but let's look at this guy first. So the instructions are find the area. Find the area. Now this is a formula that will be given to you on your graduation test. If I look here, I see that the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. 1/2 base times height. So this is an important distinction that's really easy to miss. So let me give you an example. So let's take this triangle. This kind of goofy triangle. It's not a right triangle, it's a obtuse triangle. Let's say this side is 5 and this side is 6. And I want to find the area. I want to find how much area is inside this triangle. So I'd say, okay, no problem. I know that my area is 1/2 base times height. Maybe this is the base, maybe that's the height. Let's give it a shot. So I'll say, 1/2 times 5 times 6, and I'll keep going, but let's pause for a second. So is this the right thing to do? Did I do the right thing? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. I made a mistake, and it's an easy mistake. And the story here is that your height, when they say height, they mean the altitude. The altitude, and this is a special math word. It doesn't mean anything too complicated. All it means is that the altitude has to be at a right angle to the base. So my altitude must be here. Okay, it must be here. All right, and this isn't the best triangle to show this on, but the point here is the 6 is not an altitude. And it's not an altitude because it's not at a right angle to my base. Altitudes must be at right angles. So I can't just do this. I'd have to know the height, right? The height or the altitude, which must be at a right angle to my base. So all that being said, let's look back at the problem here. And a lot of you may want to say, okay, I see the triangle there, Stephen. I got it. So I'm going to do 1/2 7 times 9 because I think that's my base and this is my height. And you're close, but the issue here is that 9 is not. It's not the altitude. Now the altitude does show up on the picture. The height does show up on the picture, but it's not 9. It's this side. So this side over here is my height. So I have to find this side first. Okay, so to find that side, I'm going to use my old friend the Pythagorean theorem. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And just to review, we're finding the height, so then we can find the area using 1/2 base times height. So a is 7 squared plus height squared, whatever that is, equals 9 squared. So I just plugged into the Pythagorean theorem. 7 squared is 49. 49 plus h squared equals 81. Alrighty, so 81, take away 49 is 32. So I have h squared equals 32. Am I done? Not yet. I have to take the square root of both sides to get h all alone. We're taking away h's friends. We're making it totally alone. So the square root of 32, my calculator can handle this. It's going to be irrational. I'll show you what I mean. So the answer is not a whole number, but that's okay. The answer is 4 root 2. This is called an irrational number. Don't let it scare you. It's just a number. I can make it into a decimal. There it is. It's kind of a long, ugly decimal. It's like 5.5-ish. But remember, it's just a number. We're going to write it like this, and this is how it's going to show up on your tests and stuff, but it's just a number, okay? So the height of my triangle, I can kind of go back here now, and I can say, height equals 4 square root 2. Okay, so I have my height. Now I just need to apply my formula. So my formula says that my area is 1/2, area equals 1/2 base times height, okay? And to do this, I'm going to plug in my base, which is 7, and my height we said is 4 root 2, okay? So kind of like other areas of math where you would have maybe an x and some numbers, and you'd kind of deal with the numbers separately and deal with the x separately. Here I want to do the same thing, so I'm going to kind of leave this alone. I'm going to deal with this part. And your calculator can do that. Let me show you how, actually. So here's 4 root 2, our old answer. So I'll say that times 4, or actually the 4 is already in there, times 7 times 1/2, 1 divided 2. And I get 14 root 2. And this is the right answer. I want to make a quick point about it. You can really ignore the root 2 and just do this, 1/2 times 7 times 4. If you just do that, you'll get, what do you think you'll get? You'll get 14, okay? And then the root 2 just kind of stays there. So this is our answer, this is our area. Okay, great. So this problem is really similar, and actually I don't think I'm gonna do the whole thing here because when I made this worksheet, I thought it was easier for some reason. I don't wanna push you guys on problems like this quite yet. There's just other things that are better to focus on for your graduation test, but I just wanna talk about this problem for a second. The answer isn't 73, that's a mistake on my part. I apologize. The thing I want to point out, they're asking you to find the area, right? The first thing I would do is find the area of this triangle. And the way I would do it is I would do 1/2 base times height, right? And my base is 8, and I know this is my height because it's at a right angle to my base, right? So I can use this as my height, and that's going to be fine. So you can handle this problem. It's just 1/2 times 8 times 10, which I think is going to give you 40. So that's this. And then to find this area, I have to find this distance. And you can do it. You have to use the Pythagorean theorem. And you can find this distance. After you find this distance, you can do 1/2 base times height. But again, I don't want to stress that problem. Really, this is out of the scope of what I want to focus on for getting you ready for the high school graduation test. Okay, number 7 says, a bookcase is 3 feet high and 3 feet wide. 2 braces are going to be built diagonally across the back of the case. How long is the piece of wood that is needed to build each brace? So the picture is the whole name of the game. If you get the picture right, you're going to be okay. If you don't, there's no shot. So here we go. Here's my bookcase, right? You got to really interpret carefully. So here's a bookcase. And it says that it's 3 feet wide and 3 feet high. So this must be 3, and this must be 3, right? 3 feet high, 3 feet wide. Also, just subsequently, as a side note, if it's 3 feet tall over here, it's 3 feet tall over here. If it's 3 feet wide down here, it's 3 feet wide up there. Okay, so now it says 2 braces are going to be built diagonally across the back of the case. So what they're trying to say is that there's going to be a brace like this and a brace like this. And they want to know how long are the braces. So to figure this out, I'm going to grab this triangle. I could have grabbed the other triangle, but you just need to pick one. They're both the same, but I'm going to take this triangle. And I know it's a right triangle because it's a bookcase, so it must have a right angle on the bottom. And I know that A and B, I'll use my Pythagorean theorem here, but I know that A and B are 3 and 3, so 3 squared plus 3 squared equals C squared, and C is just my missing side, which is, they want the length of the brace. This is my brace. So 3 squared is 9, plus 9 is C squared, 18. Okay, square root of both sides, and I get C equals square root of 18. Put that in your calculator and you should get, I think it's 3 root 2. Yeah, 3 root 2, which is B.